Hello and welcome to Primal Impulse's BDSM 101 Part 1 class. What are power dynamics? Power dynamics in BDSM refer to a consensual exchange and exploration of power between participants, where one person takes on a dominant or controlling role and the other person takes on a submissive or controlled role. This can manifest in various ways, such as through physical restraint, psychological domination with consent, and the use of various implements and tools. Power dynamics can range from mild to extreme and may involve different levels of power exchange, depending on the interests and desires of the individuals involved. These power dynamics are negotiated beforehand and involve clear boundaries and communication to ensure that all parties are comfortable and safe. Power dynamics can also involve role-playing and fantasies, such as teacher-student, boss-employee, master-slave, service, submission as well. That's a power exchange that we've talked about previously. The power exchange can be temporary or ongoing. Common thing is that some people will assign temporary contracts and say, I need to, or I want to be your submissive for this period of time. And that works out as a nice little trial run. And it can provide a sense of liberation and exploration for the participants to experience new aspects of themselves and their desires. It is important to note that power exchange dynamics and just power dynamics in general in BDSM should always be consensual and safe. Consent should always be given freely without coercion, and all parties should be aware of the boundaries and potential risks involved. Clear communication and ongoing negotiation is necessary to ensure that all parties are comfortable and enjoying the experience. Here's a quick review of the basic roles. The dominant. A dominant is a person who takes a controlling or authoritative role in a power dynamic relationship with another person who is typically referred to as the submissive. Could be a switch. The dominant partner is often responsible for setting the rules, boundaries, and limitations for the submissive partner and has control over their behavior and activities within the dynamic. Dominance in BDSM can manifest in a variety of ways, including physical, emotional, or psychological control, as we mentioned, and can be expressed through a variety of activities such as bondage, discipline, or sadomasochism, BDSM. That's basically what it stands for. It is important to note that the dominant partner has the responsibility to ensure that all activities are consensual and that their partner's safety and well-being are prioritized at all times. Okay? And just because you're the dominant doesn't mean your word is law. It sort of does, but let me explain. If someone was a dominant to me and they said, I want you to jump off the cliff, no. No, sorry. That's against what we previously negotiated and sanity and sane clauses and all that stuff. So the point is that a dominant should always watch out for their submissive's well-being, whether it be temporary submissive or a permanent submissive. A submissive is a person who consensually gives up control to another person, called a dominant, in order to explore and fulfill their own desires of submission and surrender. The submissive typically follows the instructions and rules set by the dominant, who takes responsibility for the scene and the submissive's well-being, as I mentioned. It is important to note that submission is a choice and not a reflection of weakness, and submissives have the power to set limits, boundaries, in order to ensure their safety and comfort. They also have the ability to say no and stop at any time. The switch. A switch is a person who enjoys playing both dominant and submissive roles during sexual or BDSM activities. This means that they may switch between the two roles depending on the scene or their partner's preferences. They could also switch in the middle of a scene. Some people can do that. Some people like to keep it separate, but some people can switch in the middle. A switch may be identified as a switch in their BDSM community or relationship, or they may keep their preferences private and only engage in switching activities with trusted partners. Some switches find that they have a preference for one role over the other, while others enjoy both roles equally. It's important for switches to communicate their preferences and boundaries clearly to their partners, as well as negotiate their roles and activities before engaging in the BDSM scenes. Again, now, the slave. A slave is a person who willingly gives up their freedom and autonomy to their dominant partner, often referred to as a master or mistress. This relationship between a master/mistress and their slave is typically one of complete power exchange, TPE, total power exchange, where the slave gives up control over many or all aspects of their life to the dominant partner. A slave may be expected to follow strict rules and protocols set by their master and may engage in a wide variety of BDSM activities: bondage, discipline, humiliation, and service. Unlike a submissive who may negotiate the limits and boundaries of their BDSM activities, a slave may give up much or all of their agency to their master and mistress and agree to engage in any and all activities that the dominant chooses. Now, big red asterisks there, and I'll go over that in a second. It is important to note that the decision to become a slave in BDSM is a serious one and requires a great deal of trust and communication between the partners. We'll be going over more about power dynamics in a future class, but let me go over that big red asterisk real quick. The reason why someone would willingly give up that autonomy and the ability to say for it and the ability to say that is because they have so much trust and so much experience with said person that they know each other that well. Personally, this is my opinion, but it's also something that I believe should be the case. Even slaves should be able to say no. And that is because if something is absolutely damaging to somebody, you need a way to stop it in case the dominant is being inadvertently careless in some way. I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose, but there has to be a way to safely say stop. So a lot of slaves will say, I don't have a safe word, or all of my actions are dictated by my dominant. That's fine, but I do think that at the end of the day, they need a way to be able to stop something if something is going wrong. And I do know a few masters and their slaves that have that sort of protocol, but I know that there are some people that will go full in on that, and that's okay. That's up to them. But it is very important that there is a lot of trust and a lot of experience between two people before getting to that step. To me, if you want to equate BDSM to a vanilla experience, it would be akin to marriage is what a slave is. For me, a submissive is akin to an engagement. And before that, it's sort of relationships or dating. So that's how serious I take submission. Various other different types, if you want to go along that path. I'm getting off on a sidetrack, but that's okay. Play partners. So the things we're going to be talking about, you can do as a play partner, a trial pet, under consideration submissive, or slave. Basically, a play partner is that someone only gets control over somebody else during a specific period of time in which someone is playing. Consider it like dating. You're dating somebody in that regard. Trial pet/pet. And when I say pet, I don't necessarily mean someone who is a pet all the time as in pet play. I mean a pet as in someone who is giving control over to someone else in a specific avenue of their life. So it's like, my online life is yours. That is the pet. And so you do a trial period to make sure everything's working for both parties, and then they become your pet. And then to me personally, I used to say if someone becomes my pet, then they're my boyfriend, girlfriend. That's not the case anymore. I actually moved it over to somewhere in between the pet/consideration for submissive step, because a lot of people online don't take it as seriously, and that's okay. It's a good way to trial that stuff. Although in my opinion, trial pet until that is still a good procedure, but it is what it is. We will definitely go over more about power exchange dynamics in the future, but we have a lot to do for safety and negotiation. So I really wanted to get to those as the meat and potatoes of this class. So if anyone has any questions about power dynamics, I can answer them after and or include them in the part 2. Okay, cool.